It's my pleasure to welcome you to the meeting. I'm Russ Poldrack, Director of Cores, and we're going to start with some opening remarks by Guido Imbens, the Director of Stanford Data Science.
Thanks very much, Russ. So my name is Guido Imbens. I just started here as Director of Stanford Data Science. I've only done this since the 1st of April, so I'm all new to this. But one of the nice perks of this is that we get to have these conferences here in this amazing new venue. And it is quite spectacular. It's even better from here, where you get the view to the outside. And actually, I was fortunate enough to have breakfast with Charles Simeoni, who was involved in, who this venue is named after. And I told him about some of the events we've had here already. I told him about this one. And so he was all very enthusiastic about this. But sort of the work, as Director of Stanford Data Science, has been very interesting so far, in particular because there's a merger coming up between Stanford Data Science and human-centered AI. We don't actually quite know what the new institute will be called. Hopefully we'll figure that out very soon. But I do want to make a couple of comments about Stanford Data Science and the Center for Open and Reproducible Science. And let me start with the latter. I want to do this partly as someone coming from economics, a discipline that hasn't been very good about these issues and hasn't always appreciated the importance of both the reproducibility and the open science. It's only recently that journals in economics have started being concerned about reproducibility, following the lead of some other disciplines. Many journals in economics now do actually require sharing of data and replication of results prior to publication. Implementing that at a journal where I'm currently the editor, Econometrica, and seeing how few of the papers actually lived up to the claims that they made has given me real appreciation for the importance of open science and reproducibility. I think this is really crucial in this day and age. But it's also particularly challenging given the privacy concerns with the data and given the fact that much of the information that is used in research is collected in private organizations that have both constraints on the data sharing as well as incentives that limit exactly what they want to share. And also because so much of the research is done by for-profit organizations that may not wish to share the results in a way that we would like to see in academics. And I hope and expect that the conversations and presentations today here will help contribute to progress with these challenges. The mission statement of Chorus mentions that open science practices have emerged at different rates in different scientific communities. And so it's clear that economics has been somewhat at the back of the field in that regard. But those differences in rates of progress is exactly why we have Chorus here in Stanford Data Science. We need to have discussions between the different disciplines to make sure that best practices are visible and spread to other disciplines. And it's this type of interdisciplinary interactions that are what I see as key to Stanford Data Science, as well as the combined AI Data Science Institute. Both AI and data science are not associated with one particular department. We're all data scientists these days, and we all use AI in our research. And we need to have structures in place at the university to have the discussions that improve those practices across all disciplines. And I hope and I expect that today we'll do exactly that, and I look forward to seeing the presentations and the results from those discussions. So I wish everybody here a great day here and very interesting conversations. Thanks.
Thanks very much. All right, thanks, Guido. So I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of background and telling you about how Stanford researchers have really been innovating in the world of open science and reproducibility for decades. And you only have to go back to Don Knuth, who's still, like, you see riding his bike around campus, which is pretty cool. He, in 1978, came up with TeX, which was a typesetting system, released it as free and open software. It's now become the basis for most publishing across technical domains in science. He also, in 1984, proposed this idea of literate programming, where instead of thinking about a program just telling a computer what to do, you think about the program telling humans what you're trying to get the computer to do. And this has, led to the development of, what we now see as major things like Jupyter notebooks from our friends at Berkeley. So it's been really impactful. So a few years later, John Claerbout, who was a geophysicist here, published what I think might be the first sort of paper outlining a computational notebook. Where the basic goal is reproducible research and the ability to publish it in a reproducible form. The electronic document is our means to that end. And then this idea was really carried forward by David Donahoe, our colleague in statistics, and his colleagues, building their WaveLab project and really making clear that we want more than just the paper that describes the research. We want to know exactly what's the code that you used to do it, what's the platform that you had to do it on, and how did you actually get to the figures. Really an inspirational quote for many of us in thinking about reproducibility. So today, we have people all over campus, many people in this room, who are really innovators and world leaders in open and reproducible science. And open science means different things to different people. These are just a few of examples of projects ongoing at Stanford that are tackling different aspects of this. So we have projects on open data. So you might have heard of wastewater scan from Ali Bayman colleagues, showing us how much COVID is in the wastewater. We have really impactful open source software projects that are used millions of times a day by companies like Amazon. We have open materials, things like you may have heard of ImageNet, a little collection of images that's turned out to change computer vision. We have open standards, and then we're going to focus today on open educational resources. So our goal in CORS is really to kind of take these strengths and make them available to everybody, to kind of build a community where everybody is going to have access and knowledge that they need to implement these things. We, as Guido mentioned, we're part of Stanford Data Science. We were founded in 2020 with support from SDS. And the goal of SDS is really to kind of bring data-driven discovery at scale and expand data science education, both here on campus and elsewhere. You are now in the CODA building. Last year, this building didn't exist, so we had to have the conference elsewhere. But it's a really amazing building. I hope you'll have a chance to explore it. And so we're very happy to be here. One of the things that SDS does is it funds a number of centers. We're one of those. There's also the Causal Science Center, the Sustainability Data Science Center, Data Science for Health Centers, and the new Center for Decoding the Universe. Also funds and supports large other efforts such as Women in Data Science and Data Science for Social Good. So really, kind of not just staying in the narrow lane of data science proper, but really trying to expand out in to a lot of different sort of specific areas of science. This is who we are. I'm the director, Maya, who was standing up a moment ago, associate director. Josh can't be with us today. Many of you know Zach. Zach might be the best known person on campus, I think. And then we have an executive committee of faculty and staff, and then a bunch of faculty affiliates who come from all of the 7 colleges on campus. So really a broad set of people who all care about the kinds of issues that we're going to talk about today and that we've been talking about for the last few years. Zach, as our director of open science scholarship strategy, has really been driving these external collaborations that we've been involved in. A couple of ones that I'll mention are one, the Transform to Open Science program at NASA. We've helped them, we've worked with them, held some of their events here. And then Helios, the Higher Education Leadership Initiative on Open Scholarship, which is a group across the US, probably around 100 institutions now, trying to basically figure out how can we make open science be just the way that science is done. In particular, how can we change the incentive structures in academia to make open science be the thing that people want to do and feel like they should do to get hired and promoted. A lot of our work is down in the trenches, sort of one-on-one. And again, Zach is really sort of the leader on this. So some of the things that we've done just in the last year, we worked with Rosemary Knight on her Taking the Pulse of the Planet workshop, held a day of talks about open science there. We held a summit of people who are building data repositories in sort of specific domains. We worked with C#, which is a group on campus that funds shared instrumentation, to make sure that they were adopting best practices in terms of persistent identifiers for research. You're going to hear a lot today about living textbooks and open educational resources. We've been working with Stanford Digital Education. I should have mentioned that the Vice Provost for Digital Education is a co-sponsor of today's event. We do a lot of consulting with individual labs on how to bring best practices to bear across lots of domains. In the coming year, we'll have a new grant proposal development partnership with the Research Development Office. And so part of the reason I had folks stand up is that we're very happy to have one-on-one consultations with any of you. So please come grab us, or afterwards feel free to email any of us, and we're happy to sit down and talk about how you can bring these sort of things to bear in your own work. In the last couple of years, we started a new project we call Open Source at Stanford with funding from the Sloan Foundation. And this is really kind of focused on developing and nurturing the open source software development community on campus. We're one of a number of these open source project offices that the Sloan Foundation has funded. Zach and Francesca are really the drivers of this project. So the goal of this is to, one, kind of catalyze the community, bring people together, help to grow new open source projects and presence, and to help enhance the diversity and the inclusiveness of the open source community, which has been a longstanding problem. We have a number of activities. One is a projects registry. If you go to opensource.stanford.edu, you can see a list of all the projects that we know about, the open source projects. How many are there now? Do you remember the number?
91 if you count data.
Okay, 91. We have a maintainers and contributors roundtable where people come together regularly to discuss. These are people who are building projects, maintaining projects, to discuss their experiences, help new people come into open source development. We do a lot of one-on-one consultations. You'll hear later today about the prize. We give open source software prizes since last year. And we'll be hosting workshops later in the coming year, but with R Open Science and Pi Open Science. We also give awards. Since 2021, we've been giving 2 sets of awards. I'm not going to go into details about these now because you'll hear more about them later in the day. I think 4:30 we're scheduled to have the award ceremony and see who wins this year. So today's theme: connecting open science and open education. So it's interesting that open science has probably been around for at least a couple decades now, but open education has been there since the beginning. So in 2001, MIT launched its open courseware project. There may well have been things going on before this that I don't know about, but that was like a real splash, right? Saying basically we're going to bring open educational resources from a top educational institution to the world. And then in the subsequent decades, we've seen launches of other really highly impactful projects like Khan Academy, launched in 2006, like Coursera, launched from here in 2012. And so now there's just a wealth of open educational information online. Here at Stanford, there's right now a kind of a growing excitement and initiative around what Matthew is calling living textbooks. The idea is that, and I'll say a little bit more about how I look at this from my experience, but Matthew's really, and we'll hear from him a bit later, he's really driving this idea that we need to be putting our educational materials out for the world to see. I think increasingly, people want to know what value they're getting from institutions like Stanford, and I think this is one of the things we can do that really offers a lot of value to the world. So how did I get into open educational resources? So I started teaching a statistics class back in 2018, and I chose this book, which is it's a graphic novel statistics book by Andy Field, which is kind of fun. The English majors in my statistics class loved it. Everybody else hated it. Because they had to read stuff to learn about statistics. But I didn't. There were things about it I didn't like, and so I thought about writing my own book. And then I was introduced, probably by Zach, to Susan Holmes, who's in the statistics department here, who had just at that point recently published an open statistics book. So it was available online, but also published by one of the academic publishers. And we had a meeting, and she convinced me, yeah, you should write your own book, and you should make it an open textbook. So I spent the summer of 2018 basically writing my own statistics book for my class called Statistical Thinking for the 21st Century, and I just put it on GitHub. And I put it up with a Creative Commons license, and it kind of built a web version of the book. Ended up using that for my classes for the next few years. It's important that I licensed it using a Creative Commons license because that made it really clear to people what they could do with it, and that becomes important in a moment. We had a lot of contributors. Now, some of these people just came in and fixed one typo. Other people, did substantially more, including like writing major sections. But having it up on GitHub made it very easy for people to come in. In fact, I gave my students extra credit if they would go in and do a pull request on GitHub. And then a couple years later, I was talking to my editor. So I had written a couple books for Princeton University Press, and I was talking to my editors, and I told them about my open source book project. And they said, oh, yeah, send us a link to it. We'd like to have a look. And so I did that. And then they came back to me and said, hey, I think we'd like to publish this as a paper book. With clear realization that the open version is going to stay up. It's up there as a CC by NC project, and it's not going anywhere. But they thought there was enough value in having it as a book that people could buy that they were willing to do that. One of the cool things about having it be licensed under CC BY is that people can come along and do other stuff with it. So this group from Mexico contacted me and said, hey, we'd like to translate your book into Spanish. And so it took them a number of months, but they basically wrote a version, and now it's available on the website in either English or Spanish because it's open and released in the right way. So I just want to finish by kind of mentioning my latest OER-ish project, trying out a different model. I've, over the last year, been thinking about writing a book about kind of AI-assisted coding and reproducibility in science, because everybody's writing code with AI now, and if we don't do it right, I think there could be a lot of problems. So I had written a bunch of stuff and kind of went nowhere, and then I decided to start sort of just releasing it in sort of blog form. So I started a Substack called Better Code, Better Science, where I'm basically releasing like half a chapter at a time, and then also making that available, again, CC BY NC on GitHub. Anybody can come and edit. I'm hoping that people will come in and fix. There's places where it says TBD. I'm hoping people will come in and actually write some stuff to help the book go somewhere. We'll see if this gets published as a paper book. I know this is actually, I think, a perfect use case for the living textbook idea, because this is an area that's moving so fast that if you were to submit it to a publisher, by the time you got the copy edits back, a large part of the book would probably be outdated because the AI-assisted coding world in particular is moving so fast. And so I think this is going to be a really interesting experiment to sort of see where we can end up in terms of like trying to keep something going in an area that's very fast-paced. So we're going to hear today about sort of the breadth of at least part of the breadth of open educational resources. One being open textbooks. We'll hear about the OpenStax project. One being OpenCourseWare. We'll hear about the Stanford Code in Place project. And one being what I'm going to call open classrooms, which are, in this case, videos on YouTube, and really sort of showing the breadth of different ways in which open materials and open resources can be brought to bear on helping people out in the world do a better job of learning all the stuff that people need to know to be successful today. So the agenda, we're going to move in just a moment to Richard Biraniuk from Rice, who's going to talk about OpenStax. We'll have another keynote from Chris Peach, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll move into some sort of shorter and lightning talks after the break. I hope that you'll all hang around, if possible, until the award ceremony at 4:30, and then we'll have some refreshments in the end. So thank you very much.